Hey, we're back in the experts corner of High Ticket Woman. Welcome to another episode this week. I'm so excited today to have Erin Davis here with me. Erin is a therapist and coach like me who helps women untangle from worrying thoughts. Mm, we're gonna have a great conversation about that because that's like all women. And she does that by helping them weave together their story into a narrative, in other words, changing the narrative that lets them live in the present and then open the door to deep love. Oh gosh, this is going to be an amazing episode. She's the host of Bossing Up, Overcoming OCD. And with over a decade of experience, she's helped so many women regain control of their lives. Erin, welcome to the High Ticket Woman today.
Thank you so much, Debbie. It's a pleasure to be here.
I love that we're going to have this conversation because I can imagine that you are extremely busy because I've yet to meet a woman who doesn't worry.
Oh, right. Yes. And so many women are very worried about their relationships. And it makes sense because relationships are so important to us. And I feel like there's so much help available. And I definitely want to be that light and share the message about how things can be different because I've experienced it personally, even in my own life. So I'm just eager to help other women do the same.
Are you comfortable talking about your own personal story?
Sure, sure. Yeah, I mean, I grew up and experienced sexual abuse in my childhood and grew up feeling like I wasn't enough, and I made bad choices in relationships and blamed myself for it, just a lot of self blame and guilt. And then with my long term boyfriend, we had been dating for 4 years, far too long, honestly,
Yeah.
and I always dreamed of getting away. Like, I saw education and career as a way to help get me to safety, get away from the chaos, to start fresh.
Yeah.
And anyway, with my boyfriend at the time, I remember we were driving down the highway and a Rascal Flatts song came on the radio called My Wish. Do you know that song?
Yes, I do. Yes. My wish for you. Yes.
Yes.
The greatest song.
Yes. It is. And, so the chorus, it's like, "My wish for you is that this life becomes all that you want it to." And as it goes on, it says, um, "And while you're out there getting where you're getting to, I hope you know that somebody loves you and wants the same things too."
Yeah.
And it hit me, because like, this was very much a love song, and I'm very much in my feels, and then when it's, like, saying that someone wants the same things too, I turned over to my boyfriend at the time, and I was like, "Do you think we want the same things?" And he was like,
Mm.
Yeah, I think so. I think so." And I'm like, "Okay, what do you think that is?" And you know what he said?
What?
He was like, "I think we'll live together and see how it goes." I'm like,
Mm.
"See how it goes?" Oh my goodness, we have been
After
together
4 years.
Yeah, and we're still in this trial period, and plus with my, like, Christian feelings at the time, because I wasn't much of a churchgoer, like, I didn't grow up in church. I was baptized at 21, honestly, because after I met my husband, who was an avid churchgoer, someone I prayed for, that's when I got baptized, but in my heart, I knew it wasn't that wasn't the path for me. I didn't wanna live with someone that wasn't committed to marrying me, so anyway, he said he said that, yeah, we would live together and see how it goes, and that that was all I needed to be like, "Nope, I'm done."
No. Yeah.
And I never looked
You
back.
were pretty decisive in that moment of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
A lot of women are not, though.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so that was an epiphany for me, and that at least got me out of an abusive relationship. Someone that I didn't need to be with, and it opened the door for me to have that open heart for my husband whenever he and I met. And yeah, my husband is wonderful and very, very thoughtful and funny and supportive, and I'm just so lucky to have him. Um, but yeah, all those doubts of like, am I gonna find someone? What if I don't get married? Or how do I know they love me? And I find a lot of women, they'll even worry like about, am I compatible enough with my partner? Do they find me attractive? Or, I mean, it's so many variations when it comes to relationship anxiety. And so, and Debbie, maybe we could, talk about this kind of together. Like for therapy, I felt restricted. I felt like I could, I mean, and legally and ethically, I get it. You can only treat the people within your state, but I wanted to do more. And that's why I expanded into coaching because I wanted to reach
Same thing.
more
Yeah,
women.
I think it's yeah, yeah. I know, I hear you 100%. First of all, I feel like I have a very coaching sort of perspective in the way that I work with people, um, even though I am a therapist, but coaching has allowed me, to use the label of coach has allowed me to expand, as you say, the people that I help with, but it's also sort of an approach. It's a way of working with people.
Yes.
Yeah. So how did you find your way into therapy and coaching? Because you were married pretty young at 21 or
Yes, I was. I'd always wanted to be a helper. I was that person in the family that people came to for advice. And I think for me, because of some of the abuse and chaos I was experiencing, I always wanted to find a way to be a voice, that voice for someone else to help advocate, or help them sort through their thoughts and their feelings honestly, to make them feel validated in knowing that they're not crazy, that the relationships they're in are abusive, and here's why. And here's what you do to find freedom or to get us away from it, to find that escape and in healthy ways,
yeah.
because I think sometimes uh, victims find unhealthy coping mechanisms or they're chasing things they shouldn't. And I don't know, even in my adult years, I think it's always a growing journey. And I feel like my spiritual life is on so much of a better path now, you know, even from my younger days. And no, and not growing up in church, it was hard to not have someone to lean on. And I don't know how some people make it, And anyway,
Yeah.
I wanted to
You
be.
mean to not have the foundation of faith. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes. Exactly. So at the very least, I wanted to be that confidant for someone, and therapy was that door.
yeah.
Um, that
Our
because
paths are very similar.
Oh, okay.
Well, I just remember as a kid, like, why is everybody talking to me?
Yeah.
Why? I guess I'm a good listener, but I don't know what to tell them. So it wasn't until I got, the actual training to realize what to say and do and how to help people that, it began to make sense. But yeah, I was always the person people would gravitate towards to open up to and talk and
Yes.
people like far older than me. And I was like,
Right?
"Look, why are you talking to me?"
Right?
Yeah. Now
Yes.
your podcast is about overcoming OCD. Do you specialize in OCD? Okay,
Yes, I
listen,
do.
that's obsessive compulsive disorder. Okay, so tell me why you specialize in OCD. That's interesting. I've never met anyone who actually specialized in that one diagnosis.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, early in my career, of course, now through some of the training and whatnot, I think I have had my own fair share of the relationship OCD
Yeah.
theme, especially centered around myself. Like, am I being loving enough? Am I doing enough? Am I being good enough? So
So so for the sake of our listeners, I would love it if you would just explain like what OCD is and how does someone know they have OCD? And it's interesting that you're talking about relationship OCD.
yes.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay. Well, the clinical definition with the obsessive compulsive disorder, obsessions are those intrusive thoughts, and
Mhm.
actually it can be intrusive thoughts, feelings, urges, or images, meaning they're unwanted, they're involuntary, and they create distress. So then from there, you're trying to figure out how to get rid of these thoughts or how to control the thoughts or how to keep this bad thing from happening, whatever that fear is. Like a lot of women have health anxiety, for example, and they feel they feel a tightness in their chest and they're like, "Oh my goodness, I'm going to have a heart attack," you know? So they're running to the ER or they're researching on Dr. Google, or they're asking their significant other, "Am I going to be okay?" And anyhow, it just becomes a perpetual cycle. And so that's what the cycle is all about. You have the intrusive experience one way or another, then the behaviors, those are your compulsions, and round you go. And you're spending at least more than an hour a day in this cycle. And OCD is very sneaky and very tricky. So that's the thing with relationship OCD. Like OCD is not always about germs, not always about organization.
That's how we sort of tend to classically think of OCD, right? Like
Yeah,
the people who are always washing their hands because they're germophobic or they're checking, they're checking doors, are they locked? Or they're checking to see if the oven's turned off 28 times. Yeah. But we don't tend to think of this in terms of like how we handle our relationships.
exactly, exactly, and that's what's, like, so exciting with, my coaching program and everything I'm aiming to do for women because a lot of women don't even recognize they have OCD because they're just so focused on their relationship or their work or all the things, and they don't do the compulsive hand washing, you know?
Yeah.
They don't
Yeah.
they don't even probably consider themselves organized. But
Mhm.
they'll recognize that, oh, they're a perfectionist or they have a lot of doubts and they try like, boyfriend texts or they text their boyfriend, boyfriend doesn't text back and they're in a tailspin.
Right.
Who's he
Right.
talking
So
to?
I've got a lot of anxiety around my relationship, but that doesn't mean I have OCD. So can you just sort of define for our listeners, like what what kinds of behaviors, what kinds of thought patterns and behaviors would indicate, oh, you know what, I might actually have this.
Mhm, mhm. So, really what I would suggest to someone if they're like, "Is this OCD or is it not?" It's like, how severe is this? How big of a problem is this? Because we all experience doubts from time to time. And sure, if my husband didn't text me for several hours, I would wonder too. But just because of our natural patterns together, right? Like I can pretty much rely on him. But essentially, with our doubts, there's two types of doubts. There's reasonable doubt, meaning we have a question, but we go get the information, then we feel resolved. Okay. We all do that. But obsessional doubt, that's the second type of doubt. That's when we have the answer for our doubt, but we still don't believe it. And so that's where the OCD creeps in and it's creating all these stories and scenarios. And then before you know it, you're in that bubble and it feels like you're in this nightmare of a situation. And
Can you give us like an example? I mean, I'm sure you have hundreds of them, but like an example of that obsessional doubt and how that sort of plays out in a certain scenario.
okay. All right. So, a common one that I run into with ladies, especially with the relationship OCD, they're out with their boyfriend. Things are honestly going fine. Things are going well. But their boyfriend has a look on his face like he's upset or he's not having fun. And so she asked him, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm fine." She's like, "Are you sure you're okay? Really? Like, you don't, what's wrong? Can you just tell me what's wrong?" So checking, checking, checking.
Checking, there's the compulsions. Yeah.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. It's not a lock on a door, it's checking if their boyfriend's mood is good and satisfied and happy.
Yeah. Boy, this happens a lot. How does it play out in marriage? Like I imagine 'cause I don't know if you just only work with women who are single, but wanting to be married. I'm assuming you work with women who are married too. So some of this relationship OCD is still playing out. The anxieties are carrying over into the marriage.
Yes. Well, and that's the thing, like, even if, someone resolves one part or one piece of their OCD is gonna find a new way in unless you know the strategies to turn down the volume, and that's some of the stuff that I work
What
on
we work with,
with women.
yeah.
Yeah, so in marriage, I mean, it can show up and I got a lot of great feedback on really this concept that I've noticed even with me, and I knew it wasn't what I truly desired, and I was like, "What the heck is this?" So I call it, divorce ideation.
How interesting.
Yeah, because things are going well, you're happy, but then divorce pops up in your mind. You're like, "What? Why?"
Where did this come from? Yeah.
Yes. So I put a YouTube video out about that and people were commenting like, "Yes, I feel the same way." And I was getting DMs of like, "You're really speaking to my experience." And so I'm glad I put it out there, you know? And
Yeah.
I think that's
So
the beauty of podcasting, because you're just
absolutely. I'll share a personal experience and you can tell me if I you tell me if I'm struggling with the obsessional doubt. I think this is probably a good example of it. Um, I am divorced and now remarried and, like, have the most amazingly wonderful husband, and he is my biggest supporter and encourager, and he's never, ever in 5 years of marriage said anything to suggest that he wants to change me in any way. Like, it's amazing, right?
yeah.
But that wasn't what my first marriage was like. That was 24 years of, "Why are you doing that? And why are you doing it this way?" And lots of questioning, right? So and subtle sort of little judgmental statements like, "Why does the TV have to be on? Why are you reading a book? Why are" So,
Wow.
when I literally had a conversation with my husband about this, like, 2 weeks ago about, like, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. You say you're happy with me right now,
Yeah.
but what happened in my first marriage was I didn't know that there was all this discontent until years into the marriage, and then, like, the bomb exploded and, um, things ended. So it's like I can't trust that
Mhm.
Jeff is really absolutely happy and content with who I am. It's like, "Are you sure you're really happy and content? Are you sure you're not just holding back? Are you sure you're not just stuffing some feelings down? And, 5 or 10 years from now, I'm gonna be hit with the, 'I never liked how you did that. I never liked the way you left that out or made the
Right.
bread or cook.'" That's what we're talking about, right?
Yes, it
Yeah.
is. It is, and I'm sorry that you had that first marriage experience. Cause yeah, I mean, that kinda leaves some PTSD wounds, I mean
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I've never thought about it from that point of PTSD, but yeah, I mean, you bring that back. I mean, I think this is where relationship OCD can occur in marriages. You bring some of that baggage and those triggers with you into the next relationship,
yes.
and it's really difficult to let go of the fear that this is gonna happen again.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes, because, some of these experiences start to shape what, we call the fear itself, and see, the OCD is looking for evidence to show you, "Oh, you are this feared self." And so through the work, you get to know the real you.
Yeah. Very, very interesting, looking for evidence. It's like, I know this is what's gonna happen, or I know this is how you really think, so I'm filtering everything that you're doing through this lens of, "Oh, yep, there it is."
Yeah.
So it doesn't reinforce this. I wanna go back to this concept of divorce ideation. So what you're saying is, I have no I have no, rational reason for thinking that we're gonna end up divorced, but I can't help but
Yes.
think that we're gonna end up divorced.
Yes. Yes. So whether that's a fear of compatibility, fear of them leaving, or just the intrusive thought of, like, "What if I left him?" And divorce, in fact, 70% of divorces are initiated by women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
I guess
Yeah.
I didn't know that statistic was that high.
Yeah. With the work I'm doing, I'm hoping to reach women before they get to this point. Because
Yeah.
also a lot of women, because of the OCD, and they don't even realize it, but they're wanting control. And so
Yeah.
sometimes they will prematurely pull the plug on a relationship all for the sake of control.
Yeah. I I know what's coming, so I'm taking preemptive steps.
Yes.
Okay, I'm really curious. I know you work specifically with women, but I wonder how much of the time we as women it becomes sort of the self-fulfilling prophecy, right? We
Yeah.
have this relationship anxiety. Where we've convinced ourselves irrationally that um he doesn't love me. He's not, he says
Like,
he's happy with me, but he's really not. And I know
yep.
this from historical things that have happened to me, and so then we actually drive a wedge between our
Yes.
boyfriend or our partner or, our spouse. Yeah. Can you speak to that?
Yes. I mean, I completely agree because I feel like we w we are not intending to create a wedge because we in fact very much value these relationships, but that's what OCD is gonna attack. It attacks the things that we love and we value and we cherish. And, for women, most of the time we value our relationships. So
Right.
that's where it's going to
We are
primarily.
we are relationship oriented for sure. Yeah.
Yes. And
Yeah.
so with the part about driving the wedge, we are creating our own reality because the brain doesn't know the difference between the actual here and now stuff and these stories that we're conjuring up.
Yeah.
And so if we spend a lot of time in the story land, well, our behaviors are going to match that, and it just throws off your mood. If we're in that
Yeah.
headspace, we're kind of in a funk. And so most of the time it's a mental battle. I mean, it's like a war zone in your mind.
Very, very true. I like that metaphor. Okay, so this is where we come to, like, rewriting the narrative then, because now do you do any work with women about, like, identifying, I call them faulty beliefs, but, we'll hear people call them limiting beliefs or core beliefs. Do you work with women to help them identify, like, what that messaging is that's going on inside of them that's so inaccurate? I mean, that has to be
Yes,
how you rewrite the narrative is you gotta identify the belief system that's there.
exactly.
That
Yeah,
that
so we process and, depending upon how insightful they are, we can get to that core fear pretty quick. And
Yeah.
that core fear, a lot of the times, it's a state of emotional suffering that we feel like is gonna be there forever. And so we're trying to avoid that pain, and we do a lot of things to avoid that pain. And the core fear, it seems like in one variation or another, women are worried about being a bad person. Whether that is
What is that? Why do we struggle with that so much?
it's a great question. I mean, it must be something very deep ingrained.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's some sort of shade of a bad person. It doesn't matter if it's, being single and alone and that makes them a bad person, or if it's,
I think possibly one of the reasons for it is that I really do believe we are hardwired by God to be caretakers and nurturers, and because we're
yeah.
all emotionally based, we care what people think, I mean, it's a
Yes.
spectrum of that, but when your sense of self-worth is often very much attached to how good of a job you do at pleasing other people, then you are going to be emotionally yanked around. And so if you've had
Yes.
people in your life who are validating you as a person, as a woman, as a human being, then, you're left with this core perception of, "I'm bad.
Mm.
I'm bad unless you tell me I'm good."
Yes, and so the reassurance part, where we're asking for reassurance, like, some of it is, like, normal and reasonable, but
Yeah.
it's excessive or it's problematic when it becomes, like, too much. You're getting the information and you still don't believe it, and so, um, whenever we're doing some of this work, one of the other strategies I do, which I've got my, peace framework as well, where we're talking about, the evidence, really
Mhm.
focusing on the evidence because even in a court case, you have to have evidence in order to be proving anything.
Yeah.
So in this, peace method, the E, stands for evidence, and then I've also got empowerment because you can find power in the evidence, in the actual here and now, and that evidence, it needs to come from at least one of your 5 senses. So in a way, it's giving you that information and it's solid.
So in other words, everything I'm telling myself I have to be able to back it up by something I know is factual.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I have this exercise that I walk people through called challenging your worries, and it literally is just 6 questions of, like, what are you really truly worried about? That's question 1, because sometimes the surface worry isn't what, the core fear is, as you know. What has caused that worry?
Mhm.
Um, what am I telling myself about that worry? What's the likelihood, and I tell them, "Give this a percentage. What's the likelihood that that is going to happen exactly the way you imagine it will?
Yes.
What is that based on evidentially?" Right?
Mhm.
And then when you realize that there is or is not evidence supporting it, then that leads to what you do. If it's not a realistic fear, then you have to change the way you're perceiving this situation. As you say, you have to change the narrative. If there is a basis for your fear, then okay, now you need to take steps, tangibly do some things differently to change that situation. But yeah, absolutely, like, so much of our fears as women
Mhm.
are catastrophic fears. We tend to worry about the future all the time.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's always the, "What if this happens?" And then that, and then that, and then that, and it,
Mhm.
rolls up in our brain. But
Absolutely.
but what are we basing that fear on? Like, so much of the time as you say, there is no evidence of what we're worried about actually happening.
Right, and the further away from the here and now that we are, the more anxious we're gonna become
Yeah.
because it's just not based in reality, and I think, Jesus was a good teacher in helping us see, like, don't worry about tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Y Present is the how does the scripture go? Present is the I guess the summary of it would be today has enough to worry about. Don't worry about tomorrow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's true, right? But, I rob myself so much of the time of, like, enjoying the present because I live in the future. Not with anxiety, m most of the time, I actually don't struggle with anxiety in that way, but I'm always excited about the future. I'm so idealistic. I'm like, "Oh, it's gonna be so much better when," and then it sorta steals a little bit from the moment, right? Because
Right.
because whatever it is today, "Oh, it's gonna be better tomorrow," instead of me just sitting in the moment. But I can see how the same is true from anxiety because we're always worried about what tomorrow's gonna look like, so we can't
Yes.
relax in the moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And when I was doing therapy early on, back almost 14 years ago now, I noticed that there were a lot of even teenage girls and then adult women just having these persistent, like, anxieties and just worrying about the same type of theme over and over, but it wasn't your traditional OCD. And so that's when I started to read books, you know, because back then, I mean, yeah, we had the internet, of course, but, books were really our go-to for research. So,
Mm.
just reading books about OCD and then kinda it's almost like a plug and play, you know, of this is the cycle, it's just what's the content now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And men are so different from women. It's so I can see I mean, I think about all the couples I've worked with over the years and how really men are pretty direct.
Yes.
They say what they mean. So if they say, "I love you. I'm fine. I'm happy in this relationship."
Yes.
You can really take that to the bank, right?
Mhm.
There may be there are exceptions to everything, but why do we as women want to pull that apart and analyze every little aspect of that and hold up and go, "Is that really true? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not." I can see that this is really, really a big problem. I wonder if you have, without giving anything confidential away, can you walk us through like some of the successes, some of the big wins
Mhm.
that some women that you've had have experienced working with you?
Yes. Well, there have been several. Yet I would love to speak on one of the ladies. We'll just call her Sarah. She was experiencing this perpetual doubt and worry about her fiance. We're about to get married. I don't know if they're going to love me forever. What if we're not compatible? Because, you know, again, as women, anytime there's a conflict, that's already uncomfortable. And like that's understandable. But someone with the relationship OCD, it's like the end of the world, you know? So even just a disagreement over where and when to take vacations was enough to create this worry spiral of what if we're not meant to be together? How do I know he's the one? So some of that work we do, like I've done the exposure response prevention, which is pretty successful, which is where we might do some fear scripts, worst case scenario. You say it out loud on repeat. But what I've really found and what helps a lot of women is recognizing when they have gone into that worry land. They're in the OCD bubble because just like how we are, even in a movie theater, we kind of get into the movie. And whenever we leave, we feel like we just walked out of this whole new universe.
Yeah, reality, yeah,
Yeah.
altered reality, yeah.
Yes. So once she was able to identify, oh, I have crossed the bridge and I'm over in the OCD bubble, she would remind herself to walk back over that bridge back into the here and now.
Yeah, it's another really just sort of creating a visualization, like, mentally,
Yes.
whatever metaphor you use. I love the worry land or the
Y-
OCD bubble metaphors. Like, you can literally just visualize yourself going, "Oh, I like to call it catastrophe land, but I love worry."
Yes.
It's the same thing. Yeah, so getting back, walking over the bridge or whatever, and you're back in reality. Yeah, that
Right. Yeah, so that,
sure.
really helped her, and it was, so beautiful and great timing for her because it was like she had this breakthrough, and then a few weeks later, she's picking out her wedding dress and is messaging me and was like, "Yeah, like, I'm not even worried," and it
Yeah,
was and, you know, this is why we do what we do, you know, to really help people, and it was just such uh a
that's
profound
powerful.
moment. Yeah.
I mean, it's powerful to be able to help people shift away from something that really is so debilitating. I mean, anxiety is so debilitating for people, um, in so many different ways, and to be able to shift the way that they think and see the world around them and the world inside
Yes.
of them is so huge.
Yes.
You have this beautiful Southern accent. So where are you
Thank
located?
you.
And do you only work with people in your state? So where are you located?
Okay. I am in North Carolina
Huh?
and
Uh,
with, My coaching business, I mean, it's open to
Yeah.
whoever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, anybody.
Awesome. And do you do one-on-one? Do you do groups? Do you have like I've launched into courses and whatnot. So do you are you are you a thinker out of the boxer like I am, or do you
Yeah.
see people one-on-one primarily, or what do you tell me what you offer?
In my therapy practice, it's one to one. In my coaching practice, I'm really aiming to get a group and community vibe.
Mhm.
That's what I'm really after because if more and more women can come around each other and support each other and know that they're not alone in this, I think we're going to
Mhm.
see some huge shifts. Because just like, this client, Sarah, if she was sharing with the group about all these revelations she's having, like how much of that can also help others, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just really creating that community because, again, the OCD is going to try to come back and make you believe something else. But if you have allies on your side who can be like, No, girl, like that's the OCD again. Like, just because he's not texting you back or just because,
Yeah.
you guys had an argument or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I once had a client who lost her relationship because there were too many times she had just spiraled from that anxiety of, "Why am I not
Exactly.
hearing from him?" And so who's he with? And he's lying to me when he says he's, you know,
Yeah.
especially because it was a in her case, it was a long distance relationship. So, who's he out with? And, there are pretty women there and, what if? And then away it goes. And then she would channel that into anger and then she would lash out at him.
Yes.
Yeah, but she's come a long way, from that, but yeah, she lost a relationship as a result of that. If you were to give women one one piece of advice when it comes to this relationship OCD, what would it be?
That's a great question because there are so many great yeah, so many great things. I think honestly, the best piece of advice is to look into resources to help you
Yeah,
because it doesn't have to stay this way and you can be free from all of these spirals and essentially you don't have to live this way. I mean, that's my advice. It can be different.
in other words, go get help.
Mhm.
Don't be afraid to reach out and get help. And then that brings us to how to find you. Now I know you've got a website. It's I love the name of the website, livebeyonddoubt.com.
Yes.
Livebeyonddoubt.com. We'll be sure to put that in the, description of the episode. You're also on YouTube, so
Yes, at
find you that, right?
Erin Davis YouTube, and Erin is spelled Erin.
Yeah, Erin Davis. We'll put this in the description. Oh, Erin, this is really fantastic. We could probably talk for hours about all this stuff.
Yes.
We don't have hours. So, thank you so much for being here today. I loved having you. This
I appreciate it, Debbie. Yes, it was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, everybody, that is it for today's episode. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to share this episode with somebody that you know is struggling with relationship OCD. And if it's you, reach out to Erin, reach out to me. There are plenty of resources around. We can definitely help. Tune into Erin's podcast, Bossing Up, Overcoming OCD. I'm sure she's got a lot of great episodes out there to help with this as well. And also, as always, I'll tell you, go reach out to my website. Lots of free resources out there. And if you're beyond free resources and you just know you need some therapy on your marriage, um, give me a call. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week. Thanks for listening today.